Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 569.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because one of the best things that I have learned being in business is, well, I don't know everything, and not knowing everything necessitates that I go learn many things from many different individuals, and the best individuals, in my opinion, to learn things from are those who have already been there, who have already done that, and most importantly, are willing to share what they've learned. And I have with me today one such entrepreneur. Many of you may already know him. I am, of course, speaking about Francis Greenburger. He's the legendary real estate developer who is chairman and CEO of Time Equities and owner of the literary agency Sanford J. Greenburger Associates. Now, just with those two things, I'm already intrigued. How does real estate and a literary agency even go together? What on earth makes those two work, and how does that story even begin to develop? What that suggests to me is that you and I, we have a lot that we can learn. And most importantly, what happens to a person, an entrepreneur, that changes them, that molds them, that helps them to grow to become a person who not only is someone recognized in business, but in their community for doing the right things. These and many more are things that I believe that you will learn today. So let's get ready to listen, love, and learn from Mr. Francis Greenburger. Francis, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Jay?
So far, so good. I am intrigued by everything that you have done and curious to know a lot. Now, before I get too far down that road, because this is the first time that you're here today on the show, what I would love to do is I got to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody else. You ready?
Sure.
Okay. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes, like, Superman, Batman, Incredible Hulk, etc. Because I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. For example, as an entrepreneur, occasionally I can envision myself flying around town, using our products and services, and saving our customers one sale at a time. Also, though, like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. So if you think about Spider-Man, there was a time where he was just a kid going to school and trying to take some photos and take a girl out on a date. Then one day he gets bit by a spider, discovers that, hey, I have superhuman abilities, and now he has to choose whether to use them for good or for evil. So my question to you is simple, actually. Before Art Omni, before the Greenberg Center for Social and Criminal Justice, before your new book, even Risk Game, before all of these things and more that you have done, what we want to know is, who is Francis Greenburger?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I'll do my best to answer it, although probably referring you to some of my friends would be even more interesting. I grew up in New York City. My parents were kind of middle class, but my father was a solopreneur and frankly struggled almost his whole life economically, never making a significant amount of money or even just getting by. We didn't have a television in our house till I was 10 years old. But I guess the first thing I was blessed with was parents who liked who liked me and thought very highly of me. So that the empowerment of encouragement, of helping me to develop self-confidence, I think was a key ingredient in my early development. I also think that I had sort of unusual talents as a young person. I had sort of an instinct for business. I started working for my dad after school when I was 12 years old. And in fact, when I was 16, I left one of the most prestigious high schools in New York because I wanted to work during the day, and I went to school at night. So I was very motivated, but I was also, I had some innate qualities that gave me the early characteristics and motivations to become an entrepreneur. I've said recently, for instance, that if you don't like risk, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. And some people don't. So I think that's one of the characteristics that I had and perhaps share with other entrepreneurs.
Got it. I definitely we're going to dig in on the concept of risk here in just a second, but I just want to unpack and understand some things and definitely give it some context. You made a distinction that you didn't have a television in the house until you were 10. Was that uncommon?
Well, it was less uncommon than it would be today. This was the 1950s, and our next door neighbor and friends fortunately had a television. So when I wanted to watch TV, I went to their house. But I think in those days, there were families like ours who couldn't afford a television and didn't have.
So when you look at the entrepreneurs today, you've, for all intents and purposes, have been able to witness the impact of the television that it has had either on business and society, etc. When you compare that to, say, the things of today, cell phones, social media, etc., do you see any parallels there?
Well, certainly, I think in the 1950s, television became this extraordinary medium of mass communication. I think the evolution of cell phones and digital communication has changed has changed the nature of communication. And it's also, in a way, made it more personal, because whether it's social media or emails, I think there's a lot of interpersonal communication that's occurring, which is probably a good thing. Some people think there's too much interpersonal communication going on. It was interesting. I was at a event the other night that was sponsored by Ericsson, a Swedish tech conglomerate.
Yes.
And the head of the company was there, and he said, Ericsson's been in the communications business for 120 years or something. And we look at human communication as one of the essential needs that people and human beings have. And we've, in different ways, as the world has evolved and technology has evolved, have looked to facilitate it in different mediums. But that basic need of humans to communicate is at the core of what we do. And I thought that was an interesting comment on the significance of communication to humans, both individually as well as from a societal point of view.
Indeed. And yeah, it's definitely changing. I like the concept of it being more personal, for sure, is very much there. And then you also, if I remember your exact words, you said that you were blessed and fortunate to have parents that thought highly of you. And I don't know why that stuck out to me, but were there individuals that you were aware of whose parents didn't think highly of their children?
No, but I'm not particularly, although clearly there are people who have parents who are either not encouraging or in many cases not present. I remember once I was watching a tennis match with a friend of mine who was a tennis promoter.
Mm-hmm.
He ran the Virginia Slims tournament in New York, the culminating women's event of the women's tour. And we were looking at two players, and he said to me, "You see those two players? There's no difference in their ability." One of them was number one in the world at the time. It was Monica Seles. I forget who number two was. He said, but the real difference is that the player who's going to prevail between them is based on self-confidence. The player who has the most self-confidence will be the one who wins the match, because in fact their skill level is very similar. And I was always thought that was important. And as I reflect back on my life, and particularly the role of mentors in my life, I think those experiences, first and foremost, were all extremely empowering and gave me the confidence to meet all the challenges that entrepreneurs often have to meet and not be discouraged by.
So, in essence, then you would say self-confidence is one of those things that is a difference maker, a game changer, something that gives an entrepreneur an edge?
Yes, I would, and I think my friend was right in his observations, which I agree with.
So is that something then that you could put on, would you consider that a skill? Is that something, because it seems as though that's something that can be outside of someone else's control, at least, because the way that it seems that you understood it or have come to understand it is because your parents thought highly of you. It helped you to develop self-confidence. How would you say someone could do that in a different situation?
Well, in addition to my parents, I've been blessed with several very, very important mentors.
I see.
In my life, in my business life. And so I think the buy-in that one gets from mentors who one respects and often are at a different point in their career can be very empowering and building of self-confidence.
Got it. Totally understood. Now, you said something that I think it's one of those four-letter words sometimes that people have challenges with, and the word is simply risk. Because you said if you don't like risk, then you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. Now, being in the real estate space and the literary space, some would say that you clearly love risk. I mean, because they're fraught with both. But what I'm interested to know, though, is I don't think you perceive risk the way that many of us may have interpreted it before. So I would love to understand what you consider risky.
So I have a term that I use, which is intelligent risk.
Okay.
So to me, intelligent risk is not, I'm just going to take a flyer on something. It's when we've fully investigated it, we think we understand it, and we've drawn some conclusions and see a path to success. Now, we may not be right, but we're not just doing something because we're hoping that things work out. We're doing it because we've looked at the market, we've understood the comparables, we've understood potentially the need for whatever product we're offering, and we see an opportunity to enter and be competitive in a marketplace that others don't, ideally, because I have a theory that if you go into a generic marketplace where you're just offering more of the same, it's very, very hard as an entrepreneur to be competitive on price which is what you're left with if it's a field in which there are a number of suppliers, and that's really the differentiating characteristic. So I think that it's better to figure out where markets that people don't quite see or aren't addressing in the same way, and try to find solutions for to address those unmet needs.
So, as it pertains to the real estate marketplace at this moment, what would you say are some areas where people don't see or aren't addressing them the same way?
Okay, I can give you lots of examples, but I'll start with one. Under-occupied office buildings. So these are office buildings which are, for various reasons, might have seen their occupancy deteriorate to anywhere from 30 to 60%. Well, if you look at the marketplace for those office buildings, and let's say the average occupancy in that area, that region, is 85%, you would rightly say, well, why is this office building at 50% when everybody else is at 85%? And what you find out is that there might be some history with the building. For example, perhaps the former owners paid too much for it, had too big a mortgage, and couldn't meet that mortgage, and the building was going through foreclosure for a period of time. The old owners aren't willing to put new money in. Frankly, banks don't like to put money in, even if they're going to end up owning a property. And the building gets a bad reputation in the market. Brokers don't want to bring clients there because they're not being paid commissions. So they kind of abandon the building, and people move out and nobody moves in. But it might be a perfectly reasonable investment, particularly because given its significant vacancy, you can buy it at a great discount from what a stabilized building would be selling for. So that's an opportunity to come in at a lower cost than the competitors, because often properties that have been foreclosed or being sold under distressed situations are priced much lower than others. And maybe the building needs some improvements. But ultimately, you would have, because your cost basis is less, you can also rent for less. So these are all ingredients that make you very competitive in the market. And hopefully you'll be able to bring that building up to at least the average occupancy in the market. And typically that would be a very successful financial transaction.
Agreed. Understood. Now, and that makes sense. Is there, you know what? I'm curious to hear and know why real estate? Why was that the place for you? Hey guys, thanks for listening as always, and I'm glad that you continue to support with each and every download and subscription and share. One of the things that I want to ask you though is, where are you listening to me from right now? I know some of you, maybe you're on a treadmill, maybe you're washing dishes, maybe you're walking that dog, and some of you are actually in a vehicle driving right now. One of the fun things that you can do, get some of your time back, is begin to living a car-free existence. But even then, it can be a little complicated. So one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to go over to Zipcar. Go to joinzipcar.com/cashflow diary. It's a way that I am able to still go get a car just for a few hours, very, very simply, so that if I have a lot of errands to run and sheets to drop off and running to the short-term rentals, or if I just want to go for a long trip up to LA and back, etc., I can rent a car for a very, very short period of time. And the cool part is I don't even have to pay for any gas. Again, go to joinzipcar.com/cashflow diary.
Well, that's a good question, because I was involved with my father's business, a publishing business, starting out. I have this memory of walking down Fifth Avenue in New York City when I was 14 or 15 and realized that visually I had cataloged a lot of the buildings in New York City. You could name a corner to me, and I could kind of tell you what the building looked like. So I had this kind of innate sense of architecture and sense of the cityscape. I actually got into the real estate business as a byproduct of my book business. I rented an office that was too big for me and sublet half of it at double the rent I was paying. And the light went out. Hey, maybe it's easier to make money in the real estate business than in the book business.
Yeah, I can see that happening for sure. So now there's a number of entrepreneurs who face, we'll call them headwinds, in the sense that, maybe their parents have an idea of what they should be doing, or their spouse, or they just have family obligations, and they like the idea of real estate, and they're doing something else today. So I'm curious to know, going from publishing to real estate, were there any particular headwinds? Did your dad feel abandoned? Why are you not doing publishing? You're supposed to be doing real estate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and he, in fact, did wonder why I was leaving his business, and I said to him, look, I offered actually to build up his business because I thought it had potential, and bring in other people to work with him, because he worked by himself. My mother assisted him, and I assisted him, but that was it. And he said, oh, no, this is a personal service business. Only I can do it, or maybe you as my son could do it. But it's not a business where other people can work from our base. That's not what our clients are looking for. Well, when he died, when I was 21, and I had at that point absented myself from his business for 6 years, I turned around and did exactly what I had suggested to him. And the literary agency still exists today, and there are about 25 or more people who work there, and it's a very successful business in its industry. So, I just followed my own instinct. And of course, my main interest then turned out to be real estate, although for about 10 years I did them probably 50-50.
Wow, that had to be challenging. I'm just thinking about the number of hours that could be involved into, because you're bringing assets to market, two different kinds of assets, but it takes a lot of work to give birth to an asset. Yeah,
I've always been, I guess, one of my other attributes, which I see in my youngest daughter. I've always been a very hard worker. Even today, I'm usually at my desk at my home office until at 6 a.m, and do paperwork there and emails till maybe 9. Then I come to the office and put in a full day until 6 or 7. So I'm working a good 12, 13-hour day, and on weekends I go home with a tremendous amount of homework and probably end up putting another at least 12 hours in over the weekend, if not more. So I apparently like to work hard, which is how I maybe was able to ride 2 horses at the same time. It seems natural to me. And I see my youngest daughter, I have 4 kids, but she's an incredibly hard worker. I remember once we went out to a play, and we came home, and it was pretty late at night. It was 11 or 11:30, I think it was Hamilton. And I'm tired and going to bed, and I see her going into her study, and I said, well, where are you going, Claire? She said, oh, I have homework to do. So she was going to do homework from 11:30 at night till 1 or 2 in the morning. She was 15 or 16 at the time. So I think, and incidentally, she's never gotten less than an A in her entire academic career, which I certainly couldn't say about myself. So I think hard work is part of the formula for success.
Got it. Totally understood. Now, when it comes to looking at the marketplace today, do you see that individuals who are starting out in the real estate world, is it easier today than it was for yourself, or do you see it fraught with more challenges? How do you perceive it to be?
It's hard because my business has grown and is now a huge multinational company. Mm-hmm. We own assets in, I think, 33 American states and 5 countries. So obviously when you're operating on that scale, your perception is different. But my sense is that the business has changed. It's become a lot more complicated. There are a lot more issues that one has to be concerned with. There's a lot more expertise that you have to bring to bear to make real estate work. And that it's really a team sport rather than an individual sport. That's not to say that somebody couldn't start out and take on some smallish projects on their own, but to really be competitive and to do it on a more professional level, I think you need to be part of a group where that multitude of expertise is available from colleagues, and also when you go to the world, you present yourself as part of a significant entity, because a lot of people who are selling buildings want to know who they're selling them to. They want to know that there's a high probability that you're going to transact. Unfortunately, there are a lot of flakes in the real estate business, so people often find that they make a deal with somebody and they don't perform. And banks and financing institutions and the broad spectrum of companies that are involved in real estate want to know about your track record and credibility. So if you're young and you go to work for a company that has that kind of credibility, you sort of inherit it. If you're on your own, then it's harder, depending on the scale of what you're doing, to make the case.
So if you had an opportunity today to speak to someone who was in the beginning stages of their real estate career, is there something that you would tell them to do differently than things that maybe you yourself did?
Well, I think that, again, if you're starting out, a couple of, smaller transactions, and, you can sort of find the financing from family, friends, those kinds of things, that, you can give it a try. But I think if you really get into it and you really want to advance your career, you have to spend time working in a sophisticated real estate environment, really to learn about all of the different aspects and expertise that gets deployed around the complex questions that real estate raises. And, perhaps if you spend some time working there, you can take that knowledge and then go off and start your own company, or possibly partner with some friends. We actually, in my company, we're kind of a hybrid. Part of what we try to be is a platform for young, very talented entrepreneurs to pursue their professional life here. And we set it up in a way that they're really participating in it economically as well as in all other respects. And they can sort of be very entrepreneurial, but off of our platform, and have the credibility of our 50 years in business to put wind in their back and to get things done that otherwise they'd have a lot of trouble doing if they were on their own.
So it seems to me that, I mean, just based upon the short conversation that we've had today, there's a lot of things that you care about. There's a lot that comes that you've experienced and have done, and you have an immense amount of things to share. So I'm curious to know, how difficult was it for you to condense all of that and to put it into Risk Game?
Well, to be honest with you, I thought was it going to be impossible. And when I was thinking about this on my own, I was thinking, well, I really got to write 4 different books. Mm-hmm. One about real estate, one about publishing, one about some of my not-for-profit activities, art, education, and ultimately criminal justice reform. But then I met this extraordinary professional writer, Rebecca Paley, and we decided to collaborate on it. And when I was sort of talking about, well, how are we going to deal with all these different subject areas, she said, that's my problem. I'm going to turn it into a narrative, and I'll just tell the story. And in fact, that's what she did. And I think it's a pretty decent book, and certainly has resonated with a lot of people who contacted me once they read it, expressed their enthusiasm for it.
You know, it seems as though that the same skill set you employed with your father's business and what you were suggesting to him is the skill set that you have continually used to bring everything to market, including Risk Game. Would you agree? Well,
I'm not quite sure what you're alluding to, but...
well, in the sense that, because you were suggesting to your dad that something to the effect of, let's bring in more people who could help us make this happen, and that seems to be a through line that I've heard you say.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I have found that even in our business today, mm-hmm. in addition to the entrepreneurs who work directly off our platform, probably 40% of the transactions that we do in joint venture with other real estate companies. And we do that because we find that they have expertise about their marketplace or their own experiences that enrich us. And in combination, we're stronger than we are on our own. And so I enjoy working with colleagues, and I enjoy working with other professionals, whether they're part of my company or out on their own or part of other companies.
So at the risk of making an assumption here, I've heard many different things in the business world, from, half-hearted jokes of, a partnership is the only ship designed to sink, to many other things. I'm curious, that if you've ever had something go south that was a partnership situation or something where you were relying on someone else's expertise, as you mentioned, but not so much have you ever had that, but how did you deal with confronting any emotions or thoughts that you might have had about, okay, that happened, yet still leveraging other people's resources as part of how your business needs to grow? How did you work around the what can be complicated to trust and partner again?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think the answer is the same that it is in undertaking business ventures. You're always going to face some failure. And you can't be overly discouraged by failure. You can learn from it. You can try to understand things in a different way than perhaps you did in the beginning. But a certain amount of failure is inevitable. And that goes true with partnerships and with working with colleagues. There are people who are going to disappoint you. There are business partners that are going to disappoint you. On the other hand, I can tell you, even though I've had my share of some business partners who disappointed me and some bitterly, overall, I benefited immensely more than I was hurt by the ones that didn't work out. And I remember I once got I think I bought it for my wife or something, a cup that, they have those sayings on it. Mm-hmm. And the saying on this cup was, imagine what you could accomplish if you weren't afraid to fail. Imagine what you could accomplish if you weren't afraid to fail. So I think you can't get discouraged. In fact, I remember there was some other well-known entrepreneur, I can't remember who it was, and he said, look, if you're not failing in 10 or 20% of your ventures or attempts, you're not taking enough risk. So I think you have to be able to dust yourself off after something bad happens and move on and not apply those negative experiences to the rest of the world.
Understood. So is that why the title of the book is Risk Game?
Yeah. As I said, you have to be able to tolerate risk. You have to be able to accept failure, learn from it, and move on. And I've had my share of both, but overall, I'm ahead. It's like I often say to people, I don't bat 1,000 in the real estate business. I probably bat around 650, but that's pretty good.
Understood. Agreed. Understood and agreed. So for those that have listened this far and want to maybe pick up a copy of the book or find out more about what you guys are up to, or maybe even understand some more of the causes that you support, what's going to be the best way for them to catch up with you and find out more?
Well, for sure, you can order a copy of Risk Game. You could also check out our websites. My real estate company goes under the name Time Equities, Inc. Take a look at it. We have an extensive website which will give you lots of ideas of what we do. In my not-for-profit world, there's the OMI International Arts Center. There's the Greenburger Center for Social and Criminal Justice. And last but not least is New York Edge, which is an after-school program servicing the public schools of New York. We're the largest in New York City and I think the largest in the nation.
Awesome. So as we wind down, I've got a final question for you because I'm curious to hear your answer. There's a number of individuals who have listened this far and they started in one mental, emotional state, and now they're at a different space, having listened to you, heard your story a little bit. And they're at what I like to call the precipice of decision. It's that point at which you finally, generate the courage to take that next step. And for some, that next step could be something as simple as, I am going to write that offer. I'm going to get into business. I'm going to take that risk. I'm going to partner again. I'm going to do whatever it is the next step for them. Now, like I know that during those moments, we as humans, we often have a companion that joins us at the precipice of decision. Now, that companion, though, comes in the form of a voice, and it's a voice that often reminds us of why it won't work and who on earth do you think you are? You're not capable of that. And for some people, they're related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend that this time it's going to be different. This time they're actually going to follow through. They're going to do exactly what you suggest, and they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
Well, most people who are entrepreneurs have had dreams or ideas of one sort or another. So I would suggest to them that they think about what they regard as their best idea. Then make sure that they've analyzed it and thought about it carefully. And then try to put it into action. And where they see obstacles or challenges that have to be overcome, devise strategies of how to overcome them. So, if they're going to buy that house down the block and renovate it, well, of course, you got to have some money to do that. So figure out some friends and family who you might go to help you get started. Make sure that when you go to buy that house, you've looked at every house in the marketplace that could be a prospect, and that you understand the pricing of the marketplace extremely well. I often say that looking redeems real estate, in the sense that when you look at things, you'll see opportunities that people who only look at 2 or 3 things and then make a decision to buy something, it's better to look at 20, 30, or 100, because you'll find unusual price differences and things that might make something a good buy. And I often say, buy it right, it's the only chance you'll get. So lots of careful thought, and then where there are challenges, which there always are, sit down and strategize how to overcome them. Sometimes that's could be a matter of some local building codes or zoning issues. Go talk to the town, go talk to the officials about whatever the problem is. And you may find that although it looks like an obstacle at first blush, that if you understand their goals and needs, you can come up with a plan that they might make an exception for, because they see it to be in the community's interest. So for every roadblock, there's a strategy to how to succeed by overcoming that roadblock, not by ignoring it, not by doing something that's improper, but by finding positive solutions to those challenges.
I like it a lot. I definitely appreciate everything that you stand for, what you've been doing, the impact that you've had on lives and individuals, and even more so now that you're sharing the information via your book. So I just want to be one of the first to say, thanks for taking the time to share your knowledge, your wisdom, and insight here with us today at the Cashflow Diary, sir.
Well, and thank you, Jay, for taking the time to talk with people like me and sharing it with your listeners.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? Well, that means go pick up a copy of the book, because if you heard what I heard, you know that there's a lot more things that you can learn, will learn, should learn, need to know. And most importantly, he's clearly already been there. He's already done that. And therefore, you and I can gain from the wisdom. See, there's not enough time to make all the mistakes. Might as well leverage his experience. And I don't know if you heard this, but I know that I did. While you're on the way to the bookstore or at Amazon to pick it up, remember this. Imagine what you could accomplish if you weren't afraid to fail. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.